Hello everyone, Charles Watts here, the Arsenal correspondent at Goal, joining you on Saturday. I hope you're all having a very good start to your weekend, wherever you're watching this around the world. Plenty to talk about today. Obviously, tomorrow is the final game of the Premier League season. Arsenal in action against Wolves at the Emirates. I shall be there, so keep your eyes peeled for all the usual stuff from me, as what has been a pretty, I don't know, how do you sum up this season? Memorable in a way, exciting, disappointing. I mean, all the words sort of roll into one. I think ultimately I'm going to look back and I've enjoyed this season. I've loved it. In fact, I've loved most of it, but I've also experienced that disappointment of not quite being able to get over the line and seeing Manchester City once again go on and lift the title. But it's been a good season, no doubt about it, for Arsenal, and I'm looking forward to the scenes at the end tomorrow after the game. I'm sure there's going to be a really good atmosphere. Bit of a not celebration, that's the wrong word, because there's nothing really to celebrate in terms of trophies, which of course is what we all want, but I think there's certainly going to be a nice send-off for the players from the fans, because certainly the fans of the Emirates have loved what they've seen this season. It's been a really enjoyable one, so looking forward to that. So look, at the end of this, we'll go through the predicted 11, that sort of thing. Mikel Arteta has been speaking about Granit Xhaka in what could be his final game tomorrow. A little bit of transfer news as well in terms of a possible outgoing at Arsenal this summer, and I wanted to start by talking about Reiss Nelson. I talked about him briefly in a video I did yesterday from London Colney after the press conference. Reiss now very close to signing a new Arsenal contract, not done yet I don't think, but it's heading in that way. Arsenal now sort of feeling pretty confident that will be done. He'd rejected a few contract offers in the months leading up to this one, but now it looks like a 4-year deal is going to be signed. Art de Roche over the Athletic reported that yesterday morning, and yeah, my understanding is that there is certainly a real belief at Arsenal now that it is going to be done. I think that's good news. I've got to say, I thought Reiss had a really good season. He's obviously had some big moments, especially the goal against Bournemouth, but it's not just that. I think every time he's come on, I think he's just looked impressive. He's caused problems. He's looked direct. He's looked confident, which I think is a big thing, because Reiss is always huge talent. You know, coming through, there was no bigger talent at Arsenal than Reiss Nelson. Everyone expected him to have the sort of trajectory that Bukayo Saka's had. Obviously, it hasn't happened for one thing or another. He's had injuries. He's had loan spells. I think confidence-wise, it's just he's taken a big hit as well. But that confidence, I feel like it's there this season. You can really see it. He wants to take players on. He wants to get himself on the ball. He's calling for the ball as soon as he comes on the pitch. And, if you can add that, if you can have that sort of confidence, I think because he's got all the talent to be a real threat. And, I think this is a good move by Arsenal. I thought he might go. I thought you might think this is a time to go and really sort of kick on and build his career elsewhere. So I'm glad it appears that he's changed his mind. I think for Arsenal, it's a no-lose situation. He's still very young. You're keeping a talented player who you can use next season. Whether he's going to be a starter, obviously I don't think he is, but he's going to be a valuable squad member. And I think it just protects you. It means you can sell him. I think losing him on a free, or after all the years you've put into Reiss Nelson, all the money you spent developing right through from HLN, to lose him on a free, I think could be a bit of a blow. And I don't think whatever contract they're going to give Reiss is going to be one that's going to make him impossible to move on in a couple of years if it doesn't work out. And so I think you can give him another couple of years now, see if he can really sort of build on the season he's had now, and if not, you can sell him, and you'd be able to sell him for good money. He'd still be young, he's English, there'll be lots of interest in Reiss Nelson, and you can sell him and get some money back for all that money you've put into his investment. So I don't see it as an issue. I've seen some people going, oh, it's Arsenal again, giving someone a contract that they should have just let go. I just don't really buy into that. I don't know why you'd want to lose Reiss Nelson on a free transfer. So, I think it's a good move. And, what this does, I've seen people saying this signals the end for Smith Rowe. Again, I don't think that is the case. I think it's not going to help Smith Rowe, because Reiss, when it has come on this season, he's tended to come on the left, which again is Emil's position. But I don't think necessarily re-signing a new contract definitely spells the end for Smith Rowe. I think the end is nigh for Smith Rowe, or it appears to be nigh for Smith Rowe anyway, whether Nelson stays or whether he goes. Certainly, just the decisions Mikel Arteta is making, the fact he's not bringing Smith Rowe on at all, it just for me, looking at it, it's tough to come to any other conclusion other than he's a potential player who could go this summer. And I don't think Reiss Nelson's staying or signing a new contract or moving on changes that in any way. So, he might get a start tomorrow. It'll be interesting if he gets a start. Bukayo Saka obviously in the injury doubt, according to Mikel Arteta. And if he is, and if Nelson's recovered from the illness that saw him ruled out last week, Nottingham Forest, it'd be interesting to see how he performs from the start. If he comes in, he could potentially play on the right hand side tomorrow in place of Saka. That'll be one to watch. Transfer news wise, Arthur Okonkwo, obviously a very young goalkeeper at Arsenal, very highly rated. My understanding is there's lots of interest in him this summer and the move looks very likely. He's had a very good loan spell, 2 very good loan spells in fact this season. He started off at Crewe Alexandra in League 2, played very well there, and then took a big move in January, went over to Sturm Graz in Austria on loan. It sort of raised a few eyebrows. I did an interview with him actually just after that move, just before his debut there, and he was saying he just wanted to go test himself at a club at that sort of level in a league with quite high demands. And he had a brilliant loan spell. I think he kept 4 clean sheets. He helped Sturm Graz win the Austrian Cup, pushed RB Salzburg all the way for the title as well, just missed out on that. So he had a really, really good loan spell, and he's caught the attention of a lot of clubs, both in England but in abroad as well, especially in Germany. I believe there's lots of interest in him. He's only got a year left on his contract now at Arsenal. He's obviously got Ramsdale and Matt Turner ahead of him, and it's looking likely he may well go this summer. I can't imagine Arsenal would demand huge money for them, the way they tend to work with their younger players. We saw it with Dan Ballard recently. I think we'll see similar with Charlie Patino, and I imagine it'll be the same with Arthur. If a deal can be agreed with a club, it would be very weighted towards the back end type thing. So it would be heavily weighted for sell-on clauses, that sort of thing. That's where Arsenal get the money out of these young players. They're not going to be able to ask for a massive transfer fee now, but if you protect yourselves, insert a decent sell-on clause that if he goes on and becomes a 20-30 million pound goalkeeper down the line, then and whoever buys him ends up selling him, then you've got yourself a very nice sell-on clause included in that, and that's where you make your money back. So good luck to Arthur if he does move on. Really good young keeper, really highly rated, really well thought of at Arsenal. But you've got Aaron Ramsdale. He's just signed a new long-term contract. He's only 24. He's firmly established as an Arsenal number 1. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. And so you can imagine for a sort of young keeper, it just feels like this is a good time. And that's why Arsenal probably, if decent bids come in that sort of match what they're looking for Arthur, and they can get some good clauses included in those deals, and they will agree to move him on. And, similar to Charlie Patino, we saw it with Dan Ballard, as I said earlier in the season. And that's what they're trying to do with these loan deals, Arsenal. It's why they're really making real attempts to become a proper club that operates really well in the loan market. It's not just about building players up to come back and be a success in the first team, but it's about sending players out so they can have a really good run outside of the club, can build their reputation, and then potentially these players can be sold on for good money down the line. It can be a good investment for the club coming in. Chelsea have done it successfully in the past, and Arsenal are now very much working towards that model. Granit Xhaka, of course, this could be his last game. Mikel didn't want to talk about it in the press conference yesterday. He said, "Look, I won't talk about it until anything's sort of done." Is what he always says when it comes to contracts or transfers or anything like that. But he did speak at length about Granit the man and the character rather than Granit the potential transfer target. And this is what he had to say. He was asked, how important has Granit been to you over the last couple of years? He said, "For me, really important on every level. I think for the team and for the club as well, in the great moments like the season he has had and in the difficult ones. We have become a better club and better people, and we have understood certain situations much better than just judging them. I think the club and a lot of people have done really well to dig in there and understand what happened emotionally and why those reactions were happening, and having the courage to say, okay, let's turn around the situation and face it. There are going to be moments of doubt, but if you believe in what you are doing and you go face to face and you say what you feel, normally things work out pretty well." And they have worked out pretty well. It's been a remarkable turnaround for Granit. If this is his last game, he'll get a really good reception, I'm sure, yesterday. And as Arteta said, a lot of people have worked really hard on that Granit situation, because when Arteta arrived, he was gone. He said it himself, his bags were packed, he was going. Arteta arrived, convinced him to stay, and then this sort of remarkable redemption story has happened with how important he's been for the team, the performances he put in, the way he's grown as a player, the leader he's become. And And a lot of work has been put into that, first by sort of getting him, building that connection with the fans. Granit and the people he worked with have carefully selected things to do, like the Players Tribune interview he did was, I think, brilliantly done. And it opened the eyes of a lot of people about what he'd been through and what kind of character he was. I thought the role he played in the Amazon documentary as well was really important. It let people into seeing just what sort of character he is and stuff behind the scenes. I thought that really helped Granit. And then Mikel's been brilliant for him, obviously. And then Granit's been brilliant for himself because his performances have done it. If he'd have stuck around but hadn't played well, then there'd still be this feeling of, I don't know, whatever you want to call it, distrust or just dislike, basically, because there was a feeling of dislike there, certainly from some fans. And he's won them over for all those things, but most of all because of his performances. That's what really attracts fans to players, if they perform well and if they're good on the pitch. And Granit has been really good on the pitch for 2 years now, so he deserves an awful lot of credit for turning things around. And if this is his last game, which it probably is, I think he's going to get the reception that he deserves at the end of it. And I think that'll be such a moment when you think what happened 3 years ago to what we're going to probably experience on Sunday. I think it says a lot for an awful lot of people, and it'll be it'll be a really good moment. And Mikel loves him, which is understandable. And the squad love him. The young players love him. He's really important. He's a proper leader. I think he'll be a manager. I'm sure he'll be a manager, in fact. Mikel was asked about, the sort of how important he's been for the younger players in his squad. He said, look at how he behaves. Not only him, we have some other players who are absolutely a joy for those boys. The way that they treat them is honest and unique willingness to help them. It is not an act. It is not because they think it's supposed to be their role. It is genuine, and that is what makes the difference. We have 4 or 5 in that dressing room who have been critical for those younger players to grow, to have the right support and to inspire them, and in the right moment to challenge them to get into the right direction when they are tempted to go somewhere else. You need that. I think when he's talking about players, certainly like Granit, I think he's, Mo Elneny as well. He's such a, really well-respected figure. Rob Holding, those sort of players I think he's talking about when he's talking about how important they have been for the young players. Okay, finally, looking ahead to tomorrow's game, predicted 11-wise, difficult one. I'm definitely not expecting us to see the same back four that we saw at Nottingham Forest. I'd be really surprised if Mikel Arteta tries that again, especially at home, where I don't think it would go down very well indeed. So I'm expecting the Kieran Tierney to come back in at left back, and I think Ben White will go back to right back. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't. And then it's just about who plays up front, who is fit. Mikel obviously saying that Bukayo Saka's carrying something, whether that's a little ploy to try and get him out of international duty with England at the end of the season, I don't know. In a way, I hope it is, because I don't want him to go away with England for those games. He needs a real summer's rest, Bukayo Saka, and going away with England to play North Macedonia and Malta, I just don't think it's something that's going to do him any good and that he really needs to do, but we shall see. And yeah, he also said Leandro Trossard has got a little injury as well, but I think Trossard might have been doing Sky duty over these couple of days. So I think some of the stuff we might see before the game on Sky will be interviews with Trossard. So sometimes that tends to suggest that the player's going to be involved in the squad if they're doing the TV stuff. So predicted 11-wise, I'm going Ramsdale in goal. I'm going Ben White back at right back. Gabriel and Kivior as the 2 centre-backs, and Tierney potentially for his last game as well, coming in as left-back in midfield. I'm going to go with Jorginho again. Thomas Partey still on the bench, so I'm going to go Jorginho, Granit Xhaka, and of course Martin Odegaard. And then up front, this one's the tricky one because we just don't know what he's going to do and how fit some of these players are. I'm going to go Nelson, Jesus and Trossard as my front 3, and Saka rested, maybe on the bench, but potentially rested for this one. Of course, there's no Martinelli with that injury. There's still no Tomiyasu, no Saliba. So yeah, that's my predicted 11 for tomorrow. I'm sure it'll be wrong. Remember, it's not based on anything that I know or information. That's just me predicting what I think Mikel Arteta might do. So Ramsdale, White, Gabriel, Kivior, Tierney, Jorginho, Xhaka, Odegaard, Nelson, Jesus and Leandro Trossard. All right, that's it from me. Thank you very much for watching. As always, please do have a very good, enjoyable weekend. Go out and enjoy the sunshine. I'm going to very, very soon, and then get ready for that game tomorrow at the Emirates, which I'll be at for one last time this season. Have a great day, everyone. Speak to you soon.